Well, that was my bro that called, and it was a good. I think I told y'all, problems with my fridge and freezer. They're working, but not like they should be, not as cold. What had happened was, like Santa says, um, when he checked it, a blade off I guess the fan of the motor broke off. So he did some engineering to put it back on. $96 later, though. I mean, that's a whole lot better than buying a new fridge. That one's old as the hills. They all say anytime I have somebody work on them that they're oldies but goodies, but the problem is finding parts sometimes. But anyway, most of that was for service call. But he was a real nice fella. And hopefully, prayerfully, my fridge will still give me many years of service. Okay, I think the last thing I read was, I don't like it, said Tuppence decidedly. Especially, I don't like the chocolates having so little arsenic in them. What do you mean? Don't you see all those chocolates being sent round the neighborhood was a blind to establish the idea of a local maniac. Then, when the girl was really poisoned, it would have been thought to be the same thing, you see, but for a stroke of luck, no one would ever have guessed that the chocolates were actually sent by someone in the house itself. That was a stroke of luck, you're right. I think it's a deliberate plot against the girl herself. I'm afraid so. I remember reading about old lady Radcliffe's will. That girl has come into a terrific lot of money. Yes, and she came of age and made a will 3 weeks ago. It looks bad for Dennis Radcliffe. He gains by her death. Tuppence nodded. The worst of it is that she thinks so too. That's why she won't have the police called in. Already she suspects him, and she must be more than half in love with him to act as she does, as she has done. In that case, said Tommy thoughtfully, why the devil doesn't he marry her? Much simpler and safer. Tuppence stared at him. You've said a mouthful, she observed. Oh boy, I'm getting ready to be Miss Van Dusen, you observe. Why rush to crime when there is a lawful means near at hand? Tuppence reflected for a minute or two. I've got it, she announced. Clearly, he must have married a barmaid whilst at Oxford. I love the town of Oxford. It's so cool. Origin of the quarrel with his aunt, that explains everything. Then why not send poisoned sweets to the barmaid, suggested Tommy. Much more practical. I wish you wouldn't jump to these wild conclusions, Tuppence. They're deductions, said Tuppence with a good deal of dignity. This is your first corrida. Let's see what that means. Y'all may know these, but I like to look them up. And hope y'all don't mind that it takes me a while to even get it on the right word. Corrida. Corrida. A bullfight?
Race.
Corrida. It's got to do with the running of the bulls. This is your first corrida, my friend. But when you have been 20 minutes in the arena, Tommy flung the office cushion at her. Tuppence, I say, Tuppence, come here. It was breakfast time the next morning. Tuppence hurried out of her bedroom and into the dining room. Tommy was striding up and down, the open newspaper in his hand. What's the matter? Tommy wheeled round and shoved the paper into her hand, pointing to the headlines. Mysterious poisoning case. Deaths from fig sandwiches. Tuppence read on. This mysterious outbreak of ptomaine poisoning had occurred at Thornley Grange. The deaths so far reported were those of Miss Lois Hargreave, the owner of the house, and the parlor maid, Esther Quaint. A Captain Radcliffe and Miss Logain were reported to be still seriously ill. The cause of the outbreak was supposed to be some fig paste used in sandwiches, since another lady, a Miss Chilcott, who had not partaken of these, was reported to be quite well. "We must get down there at once," said Tommy. "That girl, that perfectly ripping girl. Why the devil didn't I go straight down there with her yesterday?" "If you had," said Tuppence, "you'd probably have eaten fig sandwiches too for tea, and then you'd have been dead. Come on, let's start at once. I see it says that Dennis Radcliffe is seriously ill also. Probably shamming, the dirty blackguard. Aw, hate that pretty girl got killed." They arrived at the small village of Thornley about midday. An elderly woman with red eyes opened the door to them when they arrived at Thornley Grange. "Look here," said Tommy quickly before she could speak. "I'm not a reporter or anything like that. Miss Hargreaves came to see me yesterday and asked me to come down here. Is there anyone I can see?" "Dr. Burrell's here now if you'd like to speak to him," said the woman doubtfully, "or Miss Chilcott. She's making all the arrangements." But Tommy had caught at the first suggestion. "Dr. Burrell," he said authoritatively. "I should like to see him at once if he is here." The woman showed them into a small morning room. 5 minutes later the door opened and a tall elderly man with bent shoulders and a kind but worried face came in. "Dr. Burrell or Burrell?" said Tommy. He produced his professional card. "Miss Hargreaves called on me yesterday with reference to these poisoned chocolates. I came down to investigate the matter at her request. Alas, too late." The doctor looked at him keenly. "You are Mr. Blunt himself?" "Yes, this is my assistant, Miss Robinson." The doctor bowed to Tuppence. "Under the circumstances, there is no need for reticence, but for the episode of tired chocolates, I might have believed these deaths to be the result of severe ptomaine poisoning. But ptomaine poisoning of an unusually virulent kind. There is gastrointestinal inflammation and hemorrhage. As it is, I'm taking the fig paste to Eyre analyzed." "You suspect arsenic poisoning?" "No, the poison, if a poison has been employed, is something far more potent and swift in its action. It looks more like some powerful vegetable toxin." "I see. I should like to talk to you, Dr. Burrell, whether you are thoroughly convinced that Captain Radcliffe is suffering from the same form of poisoning." The doctor looked at him. "Captain Radcliffe is not suffering from any sort of poisoning now." "Aha," said Tommy. Captain Radcliffe died at 5 o'clock this morning." Tommy was utterly taken aback. The doctor prepared to depart. "And the other victim, Miss Logain?" said Tuppence. "I have every reason to hope that she will recover, since she has survived so far." Excuse me. "Being an older woman, she seems to have suffered less from the effects of the poison. I will let you know the result of the analysis, Mr. Blunt. In the meantime, Miss Chilcott will, I am sure, tell you anything you want to know." As he spoke, the door opened and a girl appeared. She was tall, with a tanned face and steady blue eyes. Dr. Burrell performed the necessary introductions. "I'm glad you've come, Mr. Blunt," said Mary Chilcott. "This affair seems too terrible. Is there anything you want to know that I can tell you? Where did the fig paste come from?" "It's a special kind that comes from London. We often have it." No one suspected that this particular pot differed from any of the others. Personally, I dislike the flavor of figs. That explains my immunity. I cannot understand how Dennis was affected since he was out for tea. He must have picked up a sandwich when he came home, I suppose. Tommy felt Tuppence's hand press his arm ever so slightly. "What time did he come in?" he asked. "I don't really know. I could find out." "Thank you, Miss Chilcott. It doesn't matter. You have no objection, I hope, to my questioning the servants?" "Please do anything you like, Mr. Blunt. I'm nearly distraught. Tell me you don't think there's been foul play." Her eyes were very anxious as she put the question. "I don't know what to think. We shall soon know." "Yes, I suppose Dr. Burrell will have the paste analyzed." Quickly excusing herself, she went out by the window to speak to one of the gardeners. "Do you take the housemaids, Tuppence," said Tommy, "and I'll find my way to the kitchen. I say, Miss Chilcock may feel very distraught, but she doesn't look it." Tuppence nodded assent without replying. Husband and wife met half an hour later. "Now to pull results," said Tommy. "The sandwiches came out from tea, and the parlor maid ate one. That's how she got it in the neck. Cook is positive Dennis Radcliffe hadn't returned when tea was cleared away. Query, how did he get poisoned?" "He came in at 6:45, said Tuppence. "Housemaid saw him from one of the windows. He had a cocktail before dinner in the library. She was just clearing away the glass now, and luckily I got it from her before she washed it. It was after that he complained of feeling ill." "Good," said Tommy. "I'll take that glass along to Burrell presently. Anything else?" "I'd like you to see Hannah, the maid. She's queer." "How do you mean queer?" "She looks to me as though she were going off in her head." "Let me see her." Tuppence led the way upstairs. Hannah had a small sitting room of her own. The maid sat upright on a high chair. On her knees was an open Bible. She did not look towards the two strangers as they entered. Instead, she continued to read aloud to herself. "Let hot burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into the fire and into the pit, that they never rise up again." "May I speak to you a minute?" asked Tommy. Hannah made an impatient gesture with her hand. "This is no time. The time is running short. I say, I will follow upon mine enemies and overtake them. Neither will I turn again till I have destroyed them. So it is written. The word of the Lord has come to me. I am the scourge of the Lord." "Mad as a hatter," murmured Tommy. "She's been going on like that all the time," whispered Tuppence. Tommy picked up a book that was lying open face downwards on the table. He glanced at the title and slipped it into his pocket. Suddenly the old woman rose and turned towards them menacingly. "Go out from here. The time is at hand. I am the flail of the Lord. The wind bloweth where it listeth, so do I destroy. The ungodly shall perish. This is a house of evil, I tell you. Beware of the wrath of the Lord, whose handmaiden I am." She advanced upon them fiercely. Tommy thought it best to humor her and withdraw. So as he closed the door, he saw her pick up the Bible again. "I wonder if she's always been like that," he muttered. He drew from his pocket the book he had picked up off the table. "Look at that. Funny reading for an ignorant maid." Tuppence took the book. "Materia Medica," she murmured. She looked at the flyleaf. "Edward Logain." "It's an old book, Tommy. I wonder if we could see Miss Logain. Dr. Burrell said she was better." "Shall we ask Miss Chilcott?" "No, let's get hold of the housemaid and send her in to ask." After a brief delay, they were informed that Miss Logain would see them. They were taken into a big bedroom facing over the lawn. In the bed was an old lady with white hair, her delicate old face drawn by suffering. "I've been very ill," she said faintly, "and I can't talk much, but Ellen tells me you are detectives. Lois went to consult you then?" She spoke of doing so. "Yes, Miss Logain," said Tommy. "We don't want to tire you, but perhaps you can answer a few questions. The maid Hannah, is she quite right in her head?" Miss Logain looked at them with obvious surprise. "Oh, yes, she's very religious, but there's nothing wrong with her." Tommy held out the book he had taken from the table. "Is this yours, Miss Logain?" "Yes, it was one of my father's books. He was a great man, a doctor, one of the pioneers of serum therapeutics." The old lady's voice rang with pride. "Quite so," said Tommy. "I thought I knew his name," he added mendaciously. "This book, now, did you lend it to Hannah?" "To Hannah?" Miss Logain raised herself in bed with indignation. "No, indeed. She wouldn't understand the first word of it. It's a highly technical work." "Yes, I see that, yet I found it in Hannah's room." "Disgraceful," said Miss Logain. "I will not have the servants touching my things." "Where ought it to be?" "In the bookshelf in my sitting room, or stay, I'll lend it to Mary. The dear girl is very interested in herbs. She has made one or two experiments in my little kitchen. I have a little place of my own, you know, where I brew liquors and make preserves in the old-fashioned way. Dear Lucy, Lady Radcliffe, you know, used to swear by my tansy tea, a wonderful thing for a cold in the head. Poor Lucy, she was subject to colds. So was Dennis, dear boy. His father was my first cousin." Tommy interrupted these reminiscences. "This kitchen of yours, does anyone else use it except you and Miss Chilcott?" "Hannah clears up there, and she boils the kettle there for our early morning tea." "Thank you, Miss Logain," said Tommy. "There's nothing more I want to ask you at present. I hope we haven't tired you too much." He left the room and went down the stairs, frowning to himself. "It's a damned weird, queer case. Was it Dennis Radcliffe who poisoned the sandwiches, knowing he would be out? If so, how did he himself come to be poisoned? Did Hannah do it, in a fit of religious mania? Where does Mary Chilcott come in? Are any of the other servants mixed up in it? I can't believe they are." "Did you notice all those red spots on Miss Logain's left arm?" said Tuppence. "I thought perhaps she took drugs, but her eyes are all right. Who's been giving her hypodermic injections? Dr. Burrell, probably." "Not all those. Well, let's go for a walk and try to think things out." Tuppence accepted the suggestion. They left the cocktail glass at the doctor's house, lunched at the village inn, and then went for a good tramp across the surrounding country. On their way back, they stopped at the doctor's house again. "Mr. Blunt?" inquired the boy who opened the door. "The doctor's out, but he left a message for you in case you should call." He handed them a note. Tommy tore it open. "Dear Mr. Blunt, there is reason to believe that the poison employed was ricin, a vegetable albumose of tremendous potency. Please keep this to yourself for the present." Tommy let the note drop, but picked it up quickly. "Ricin," he murmured. "Know anything about it, Tuppence? You used to be rather well up in these things." "Ricin." "Ricin," said Tuppence thoughtfully. "You get it out of castor oil, I believe." "I never did take kindly to castor oil," said Tommy. "I'm more set against it than ever now." "The oil's all right. You get ricin from the seeds of the castor oil plant. I believe I saw some castor oil plants in the garden this morning, big things with glossy leaves. You mean that someone extracted the stuff on the premises? Could Hannah do such a thing? Tuppence shook her head. Doesn't seem likely. She wouldn't know enough. Suddenly Tommy gave an exclamation. That book! Have I got it in my pocket still? Yes. He took it out, turned over the leaves vehemently. I hope so. Here's the page it was open at this morning. Do you see, Tuppence? Ricin. Tuppence seized the book from him. Can you make head or tail out of it? I can't. It's clear enough to me, said Tuppence. She walked along reading busily with one hand on Tommy's arm to steer herself. Presently she shut the book with a bang. They were just approaching the house again. Tommy, will you leave this to me just for once? You see, I am the bull that has been more than 20 minutes in the arena. Tommy nodded. You shall be the captain of the ship, Tuppence, he said gravely. We've got to put this thing through. First of all, said Tuppence as they entered the house, I must ask Miss Logain one more question. She ran upstairs. Tommy followed her. She rapidly sharped on the old lady's door and went in. Is that you, my dear? Said Miss Logain. You know you're much too young and pretty to be a detective. Have you found out anything? Yes, said Tuppence, I have. And being young, I happened to work in a hospital during the war. I know something about serum therapeutics. I happen to know that when ricin is injected in small doses, hypodermically immunity is produced. Anti-ricin is formed. That fact paved the way for the foundation of serum therapeutics. You know that, Miss Logain. You injected ricin for some time hypodermically into yourself. Then you let yourself be poisoned with the rest. You helped your father in his work, and you knew all about ricin, how to obtain it and extract it from seeds. You chose a day when Dennis Radcliffe was out for tea. It wouldn't do for him to be poisoned at the same time. He might die before Lois Hargraves. So long as she died first, he inherited her money, and at his death, it passes to you, his next of kin. You remember you told us this morning that his father was your first cousin. The old lady stared at Tuppence with baleful eyes. Suddenly a wild figure burst in from the adjoining room. It was Hannah. In her hand she held a lighted torch, which she waved frantically. Truth has been spoken. That is the wicked one. I saw her reading the book and smiling to herself, and I knew. I found the book and the page, but it said nothing to me. But the voice of the Lord spoke to me. She hated my mistress, her ladyship. She was always jealous and envious. She hated my own sweet Miss Lois. But the wicked shall perish. The lyre of the Lord shall consume them. Waving her torch, she sprang forward to the bed. A cry arose from the old lady. Take her away, take her away. It's true, but take her away. Tuppence flung herself upon Hannah, but the woman managed to set fire to the curtains of the bed before Tuppence could get the torch from her and stamp on it. Tommy, however, had rushed in from the landing outside. He tore down the bed curtains and managed to stifle the flames with a rug. Then he rushed to Tuppence's assistance, and between them they subdued Hannah, just as Dr. Burrell came hurrying in. A very few words sufficed to put him au courant of the situation. There was ricin in the cocktail glass as well, he murmured as he hurried to the bedside. Then he looked up sharply. The shock of fire has been too much for her. She's dead. Perhaps it's as well under the circumstances. Much is the best way that could have happened. Much the best way that could have happened, said Tommy, when they had relinquished Hannah to the doctor's care and were alone together. Tuppence, you were jolly good. There wasn't much annoyed about it, said Tuppence. It was too serious for play acting. I still can't bear to think of that girl. I won't think of her, but as I have said before, you did jolly well. The honors are with you, to use a familiar quotation. It's a great advantage to be intelligent and not to look it. Tommy, said Tuppence, you're a beast. And that's all of 7. And 8 is called The Matter of the Ambassador's Boots. Hope you're liking it. I'm loving it. Loving it. Loving it. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Hey, it's Tuesday. Yeah. And Kelly's going to be on tonight. Kelly's Crochet Adventures, I hope. I haven't checked her community tab to see if anything's going on. And tonight's the night we couldn't come up on the panel and hang out and craft with her. You know she's so much fun to hang out with. She's just a breath of fresh air. Just funny and fun and a godly woman and just beautiful voice. She's got it all going on. I love her dearly. And I love you guys. So let's meet up there. 7:05 Eastern. Kelly's, Kelli, apostrophe S, Crochet Adventures. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye-bye.